My 13-year-old niece let out a giggle as she peeled the plastic off the brand-new $850 phone I'd just given her. "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice," she said, almost like it was a joke. Laughter erupted from all 30 guests in the living room, everyone except me. I didn't laugh. I just gave a slow nod, pulled out my phone, and with 2 simple taps, I shut off everything, every payment, credit card, bill, and subscription I'd ever set up for them. Gone. Just like that. That same night, I left. No big scene. No explanations. I cut all contact and slipped away quietly, leaving behind only a black backpack by the stairs. When they found it, they'd understand. Her words echoed in my head. "If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." She thought it was funny. She had no idea. She was 13, still delicate in the way kids are, but her words? Sharp enough to cut. She was too busy admiring the phone I'd bought her to notice what she'd just said, or maybe she knew exactly what she was doing. The living room buzzed around me, voices everywhere, like static, too loud, too careless. The birthday cake was still sitting on the kitchen table, unlit candles waiting patiently, but I was already burning inside. My sister, Claire, didn't even lift her eyes from her screen. She was planted on the couch, scrolling through her phone, with this tiny smirk on her face. It wasn't big, but it said everything, like she'd just heard a verdict she'd been hoping for. In the kitchen, Mom stirred something on the stove, pretending she didn't hear, but her shoulders gave her away. There was a small lift, a subtle nod of approval. And Dad? He didn't even bother hiding his reaction. He let out a chuckle, lifted his beer, and muttered, "Well, she's not wrong." That was all it took. Laughter rolled through the room. My cousins grinned, and even Uncle Warren, who probably couldn't pick me out of a lineup, let out a loud snort into his drink. And me? I just stood there, stuck, like a fool. The fool I'd always been. The one who paid for everything. The one who fixed things. The one who was never quite enough. "Thanks for the phone, Uncle," my niece said, already leaning into her mom's side. Eyes glued to the glowing screen. I stared at her. My face felt hot. My heart pounded too loud in my ears. The room started to close in around me tight, suffocating. But I didn't speak up. I just nodded, like always. I nodded. I smiled. I played along. That's what I did. Finally, Claire looked up. Her eyes met mine, and I saw it, that flicker. A flash of something cold and satisfied. Like she'd been waiting for me to break, and now that I had, she could finally enjoy the show. "All right, everyone, let's cut the cake." Mom chirped, her voice unnaturally bright, cutting through the moment like it hadn't even happened. But it had. And the taste of it stuck in my mouth, bitter and heavy. I drifted into the kitchen, leaning against the counter as everyone gathered around the table. They lit the candles, made their wishes, and I just watched, my hands curling into fists. My jaw locked up, and somewhere, buried deep beneath the sting, something colder began to grow. I felt my phone in my pocket. 2 taps. Just 2. And everything I'd ever set up for them, every bill, every line of credit, all of it, vanished. I didn't even hesitate. My fingers moved on their own, like they already knew what needed to be done. Gone. The voices around me became background noise. Blurred. Distant. It felt like I was watching a movie of people I didn't recognize anymore. They laughed, they smiled, they sang, celebrating a moment I wasn't really part of. I wasn't a person to them. I was a wallet. A ghost with a credit score. Not anymore. I slipped out the door without saying a word. No one noticed. Of course, they didn't. My niece was right about that much. I didn't go home. I went straight to my apartment, packed a few essentials into a small overnight bag, and then turned back around. In the back of my closet sat an old, forgotten black backpack. Tonight, it had a purpose. I filled it, not with my things, but with something else. Something they wouldn't expect. Then I went back. The house was still buzzing, noisy as ever. No one saw me come in, walk down the hallway, or drop the backpack near the stairs. Then I left. Really left. And by the time anyone noticed, I'd already become a memory. Inside that backpack? Let them figure it out. Let them wonder. Let them sit with the silence. But it didn't stay quiet for long. The next morning, I woke up to fists pounding on my apartment door. No calls first, no warning. Just hammering fists. "Open up. You think you can just do this?" Dad's voice, loud and shaking with anger. I stayed still, watching the door tremble on its hinges. "I know you're in there. You think you're smart? Better than us." His voice cracked, not just from fury, but something else underneath. Fear, Maybe. I didn't answer. I wasn't going to play that game. Eventually, the knocking stopped. I heard heavy footsteps fade, a car door slam, tires screeching away. But it wasn't over. Not even close. 20 minutes later, my phone lit up. A text from Mom. Just one line. How could you do this to your own family? I didn't reply. An hour later, Claire tried. She called. I watched her name flash across my screen and just let it ring. Then she called again. And again. 6 times in a row. Finally, she left a message. You think you're so clever? You think we can't survive without you? Fine. See how long you last without a family. I read it and actually laughed. Was that supposed to scare me? Because it felt more like a gift. But the real blow-up came that evening. I just stepped out of the shower when I heard the sound of a key in the lock. I froze. Nobody should have a key to my place. Nobody except. The door burst open. Dad came storming in, face red, sweat beading on his forehead. Mom followed close behind, her eyes wide, frantic. You think you can just lock me out? Dad shouted. Get out, I said. My voice was steady. Cold. Get out. He barked, like I just said something outrageous. This is what you've become? Mom's voice was high and tight, almost desperate. Abandoning your own family? We raised you. You used me, I said, still drying my hair, leaning casually against the kitchen counter. There's a difference. Dad stepped in closer, his hand curled into a fist. You ungrateful little troublemaker. Try it, I said. The words slipped out before I even knew I was going to say them. Calm. Steady. It was a dare, plain and simple. His hand shook slightly, but he kept it right where it was. We both knew the truth without saying it. He wasn't a fighter, never had been. Just a loudmouth who hid behind bluster, yelling to mask the fear always riding just beneath the surface. What did you do? Mom's voice cracked like something breaking in her chest. The cards don't work anymore, she said. Claire can't make her payments. The mortgage, it's gone. I gave a slow nod. Yeah, all of it. Everything I paid for. Everything I held together. It's over. Dad let out a laugh, dry and bitter, like something rusted. You think you're some kind of big shot now? Think we actually need you? Looks like it, I said with a shrug. Since you busted into my place just to grovel. Begging's a funny look on you. His lips curled into a snarl. You think we're begging? You think. Enough. I cut him off, sharp and cold. My voice sliced clean through his rant. I'm done. Mom stepped toward me, hands reaching like she could still fix things. Please. We're your family. No, I said, steady as ever. You're all you have. I'm finished being your cushion. Your ATM. Your punching bag. Dad's face twisted with rage. You little pest. I pointed toward the door. Out. Now. You can't do this, Mom whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. It's cruel. Cruel. I let out a laugh that didn't feel like one. Cruel is calling your son worthless while draining every dime he's got. Cruel is treating me like a tool and mocking me when I'm not around. Dad lunged a step forward, but I didn't even flinch. This time, he hesitated. His shoulders sagged like something inside him finally gave way. You'll regret this, he muttered. You'll come crawling back. I won't, I said, my voice flat and unshakable. They left, slamming the door hard behind them. But even as their footsteps faded down the hall, I knew it wasn't over. The very next day, they switched tactics. Claire showed up at my office. I spotted her through the glass wall, pale, puffy-eyed, clearly wrecked from crying. My boss gave her a confused glance, then looked downright uneasy when she started waving like we were old friends. I stayed put at my desk. Sir, there's a woman here, someone said. She's nobody, I muttered, not even glancing up. But she didn't go. I watched as she pleaded with the receptionist, her voice rising, hands trembling. Security had to step in and escort her out. I knew that wouldn't be the last time. That night came another knock. My landlord. Bit of a situation, he said, looking like he wished he were anywhere else. He shifted on his feet. Your family's downstairs. Causing a scene. Either you tell them to leave or I'm calling the cops. I looked him in the eye. They're not my family, I said. Not anymore. Through the window, I watched them yell, wave their arms, cause a commotion until security finally drove them off. But I knew them. I knew they didn't stop. And I knew that somewhere, back in that house I'd walked away from, there was a black backpack waiting for them to unzip it, to see how serious I really was. But the quiet didn't last. Not with them. Silence was just the eye of the storm. I ignored their calls for days, their texts, their frantic voicemails. I even skipped work, letting the world go quiet for once. But I wasn't stupid. I knew they'd try again. It started with Claire losing it. Her messages were pure venom, blaming me for everything. Then came Mom, her voicemails soaked with tears, begging me to rise above it all, to be the bigger man and rescue the family. And finally, Dad. At first it was fury, rage, threats, name-calling, the usual routine. But then the tone shifted. Smooth, cold, calculated. An invitation. Son, let's settle this like men, he said. No drama. Just the two of us. There's a game this weekend. Our team's playing. Come. Let's talk. It stunk of a setup, and I felt it in my gut. But I said yes. Because, deep down, I wanted to go. So I did. But the moment I saw those empty seats around him, and the black backpack sitting in his lap, I knew my instincts had been right. They didn't want peace. They wanted power. But I wasn't that same fool who stood in the living room, nodding and smiling like a good little soldier. Not anymore. The stadium was alive, roaring like something wild and untamed. Cheers, screams, metal bleachers shaking under 1,000 stomping feet. Perfect cover for the kind of conversation you don't want overheard. Dad was waiting in Section 12, Row F. Nobody else near him, even though the game was packed. He spotted me right away, waved with one hand, the other locked around that backpack, my backpack. I walked down the steps, slow and steady, eyes fixed right on him. He looked thrilled, that crooked grin crawling across his face like he'd just pulled off something clever. Didn't expect me to call, huh? He shouted over the noise. Finally ready to talk like men? Talk, I said as I took the seat next to him, eyes glued to the bag. That what this is? Oh, I think it's more than that. He leaned closer, his voice just loud enough to cut through the chaos. You thought you were slick, huh? Running off, cutting us out. But you left us a little gift. He tapped the backpack with his fingers. We found it. And guess what, genius? We know. Know what? I asked, keeping my voice steady, cool as the wind slicing across the field. Your secrets. Your lies. You really think you're so pure? Better than us. His voice was sharp now, rising. You've been hiding things. I should have seen it. All those times you played the saint. Like some hero sent to save us all. I almost laughed. Then go ahead, I said. Open it. Show me what you think you know. Something flickered in his eyes, fear, maybe. Anger too. Don't play games, he said. I don't need to open it. I already know you've been stealing from us. Twisting the truth. Acting like a good son while you hoard your little stash. I leaned back, feeling the cold metal press into my spine. The only thing stashed in there is the truth. The crowd roared again. Home team must have scored. But in our little bubble, everything was tight. Quiet. Just tension, silence, and his hands shaking on that back. You're bluffing, he said, his voice low. You're just trying to mess with my head. But it's too late. We're going to tell everyone what you really are. How you turned your back on your family. Be my guest, I said, motioning out toward the field. Tell them how I paid Claire's rent for 2 whole years. How I cleared your gambling debts when you burned through half your pension. How I bought that phone for your granddaughter right before she looked me in the eye and called me nothing. His face darkened like a storm cloud rolling in. Shut your mouth. No, I said. We're done playing pretend, Dad. You've got a bag full of proof of everything I did for you. Everything you took, and you still think you've got leverage. His hand clenched tighter around the backpack, knuckles bone white. Don't you talk to me like that. Like what? I leaned in, voice even, eyes locked on his. But there was fire behind them. Like the worthless piece of furniture you always saw me as? Like your walking wallet? Your errand boy. Shut up, he snapped, rising to his feet. A few heads turned in our direction. Sit down, I said, voice cold and flat. He froze. And for a split second, I saw it, fear. Not just anger. Not just pride. Fear of losing control. Or what? He sneered, forcing out a brittle laugh. You going to attack your own father? You think anyone here would take your side? I motioned to the crowd with a slow sweep of my hand. You really think they'd take yours? To them, you're just an angry old man with a bag full of debts. And they don't know me, but they don't have to. His face twisted, voice dropping to a low snarl. You egoist. I smiled. I was your lifeline. And now you're drowning. He swung. I saw it coming, his thick, trembling hand reaching for my face. But I didn't move. Didn't blink. That's what he wanted. A reaction. A scandal. Proof that I was the villain in his story. But I just stared. Calm. Unshaken. His fist stopped, inches from my face, quivering. I should have left you on the streets, he whispered, voice cracked and shaking. You were always a parasite. Funny, I murmured, leaning in close enough to smell the stale beer on his breath. That's exactly what I thought about you. Something in him broke. His arm fell limp. His shoulders sagged. The stadium thundered around us, cheers, chants, chaos. The perfect cover for the collapse of whatever pride he had left. I reached down and yanked the backpack from his lap. He didn't even resist. You want to know what's in here? I asked, loud enough for people nearby to hear. Everything I did for you. Every cent. Every sacrifice. Heads turned. Whispers started. A few phones lifted, catching the moment. You want the truth? I unzipped the backpack and pulled out the thick stack of papers. Here it is. Proof I carried you. Paid your bills. Saved your house twice from foreclosure. His face turned the color of ash. And you talk about betrayal? I stood, holding the papers high. You betrayed me the day you turned me into your personal ATM. The day you laughed when they told me I was nothing. Stop, he whispered, voice small, body shrinking into the seat. No. I tossed the papers at his feet. They scattered like dead leaves, fluttering down the steps in a silent storm. I turned and walked up the stairs, past the stairs, the murmurs, the recording phones. You can't just leave, he shouted behind me, his voice cracking. But I didn't stop. Didn't look back. For the first time in my life, his voice meant nothing. They didn't stop trying. Not right away. The day after the stadium, the day Dad's pride bled out on cold metal seats, my phone became a war zone. Call after call. Message after message. Accusations. Pleas. Threats. A cycle of desperation wrapped in familiar voices. I ignored it all. Dad broke first. His rage gave way to pleading in a matter of hours. We can talk this out, he lied. I'll forget everything. Let's be a family again. I didn't answer. Then came Mom. Her text dripped with guilt. You're breaking our hearts. We didn't mean it. Family is all we have. I didn't even read them all. Claire tried next. Her messages were venom. You're a coward. A selfish, worthless coward. You've ruined everything. Then, please, just talk to me. I didn't mean it. I was scared. Don't do this. But I did. Silence was my answer. That was my revenge. They didn't understand it at first. Thought I was bluffing. Just playing some twisted game. But as the days bled into weeks, as the unpaid bills piled up, as their friends stopped taking their side, they began to get it. They couldn't reach me. The landlord of their house called me, stammering through excuses about missed rent. I told him that wasn't my problem. Mom sent a photo. The family around a table in the dark, lit by a single candle. We have nothing left. I deleted it without blinking. One evening, walking back from the grocery store, I saw him. Dad. Standing outside my building, pacing like a man unraveling. His skin pale, his hands shaking. That fire in his eyes was gone, replaced by something else. Fear. He spotted me. His face lit up, twisted hope rushing in. He hurried forward. Listen, you can't do this. You're my son. I didn't stop walking. I was your wallet. He stepped in front of me, voice cracking. We raised you. We gave you everything. You used me. I looked him dead in the eye. And now you have nothing. I stepped to the side, but his hand shot out, grabbing my arm. You don't get to do this. He snarled, the old rage rising. You think you're better than us? You think you can just walk away? I know I can. I yanked my arm free. And I did. He swung at me. Slow. Weak. His fist barely grazed my shoulder, more a desperate shove than a real punch. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall, panting. Pathetic. The words slipped out like breath. His face twisted again, rage flashing. You'll come crawling back. You always do. You're nothing without us. I laughed. Loud. Sharp. It cut through the quiet street like a blade. I was nothing with you, I said, turning my back. And I walked away. I didn't look back. That night, I shoved my phone into the bottom drawer of my desk and left it there. The messages, the missed calls, they kept piling up. But they couldn't reach me. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The script was shaky. Mom, please. Your father's getting sick. Claire's losing her mind. We're falling apart. You're the only one who can fix this. Please come home. I crumpled it before I finished reading. They were falling apart? Good. Because for the first time, I wasn't. I didn't move. Didn't change my number. Didn't hide. I stayed exactly where I was. But I stopped being part of their world. And their world? It crumbled without me. Claire's friends stopped picking up. Mom's distant relatives, the ones who used to send those stiff, polite Christmas cards, disappeared. Dad. He lost his temper at work one too many times. got fired. But I didn't care. Didn't check. Didn't ask. I lived. I cooked for myself. Slept through the night. Took long, aimless walks without bracing for the next message demanding my time, my money, my sanity. They became voices. Ghosts. Screaming inside a burning house I'd already walked away from. And I was free. The months passed. Silence became a friend. I woke when I wanted. Ate meals without guilt. Spent weekends wandering the city I used to ignore. And every quiet moment felt like breathing for the first time. Sometimes, I'd still catch myself waiting, expecting the buzz of another desperate text, another guilt-laced plea, another frantic voice begging me to fix chaos I never created. But it never came. I had done the unthinkable. I buried them, not in the ground, but in my life. One crisp autumn morning, I walked down Main Street, past the cafe where I used to buy overpriced cakes for Claire's birthday, past the boutique where I dropped hundreds on gifts, past the restaurant where I footed every bill for every family dinner. Always generous. Until I wasn't. Ghosts. That's all they were now. At the corner, a street musician was playing. Slow, aching chords. His voice rough, the kind that didn't try to be perfect, just honest. I stopped. Let the sound wrap around me. It wasn't about love. Wasn't about heartbreak. It was about letting go. The world moved around me. Busy. Alive. And I stood still, breathing it in. When the song ended, I dropped a 20 into his open guitar case. He nodded. I smiled. Not because I had to. Not because anyone expected me to. But because I wanted to. And that was the difference. I didn't need them. I never did. I walked on. Each step lighter. Each breath easier. As the sun dipped below the rooftops, washing the sky in gold and crimson, I felt it. A quiet certainty. I was free.